And now for the tale of the tape in this heavyweight showdown between the Tomb Kings, who shall be led by ARKHAN the Black, and the Empire, who's going to be helmed by KARL. So on that note, guys, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So in the front line, we do have a combination of the standard Tomb Guard, so just the shielded variant, and they're pretty good against state troops. Their combat stats are quite solid: 32 melee attack, 41 melee defense, 42 weapon strength. They're really going to be able to beat down flagellants and spearmen and all those lightly armored troops that you often see in the Empire front line, where they might struggle a little bit is against greatswords, but even still, they can put up a decent fight and they hold for quite long. So we do have a couple Tomb Guard. They're going to be mixed in with a couple groups of the Nehekar warriors, and they're pretty much in the same boat. They're going to do good against all the state troops. They will struggle, of course, against cav charges. They only have 21 melee defense, 45 armor, so Knights of the Blazing Sun, Empire Knights, or even like heavily armored, infantry. So great swords are going to be able to just butter their bread pretty bad, but nonetheless, I feel like they're pretty cost effective. And I didn't want to just get, I thought it was better to get like, 3 Tomb Guard plus 2 Nehekar warriors instead of just 4 Tomb Guard. So that's going to be the front line right there. The secondary line, I do have a couple skeleton archers, so one of them is going to be the Blessed Legion of Demonetization here. These guys are quite good. They have armor sundering, so if you're shooting at Demogryph Knights, KARL, or any of those big armored targets that the Empire does often have, these guys are going to be pretty useful. And based on the map, I normally love Ushabti Grapos against the Empire. I feel like they're pretty good against the Empire Knights, Demogryph Knights, the big flying lords. Granted, they are a little bit susceptible to cannon fire, but on this map, the Altar of Ultimate Darkness, I think is what it's called, Ushabti Grapos aren't going to be as good because of this like huge hill and all the line of sight issues, so I figured going with skeleton archers as my core ranged power would be a little bit better. In the back, I do have the Eyes of the Desert. So the Eyes of the Desert are the sepulchral stalkers. You don't see them terribly often, but I actually feel like they're pretty good. They do have stock, so your opponent isn't going to be able to shoot them with cannons, so they're going to be safer than other constructs. They have anti-large, they have armor piercing, so if KARL's coming in or if there's enemy cav trying to get into your back line, these guys can actually ambush them very effectively, and they do have some okay ranged attacks. So we're going to be seeing how these bad boys do. For the leadership kit, we do have ARKHAN the Black, and Lore of Death is very good against the Empire. Fate of Buna is really good against the heavy cav and those elite units and greatswords and things like that. Spirit Leech is super solid against their casters and lords. Granted, Empire does have healing, so they can counteract it relatively well, but ARKHAN the Black is just so good. He does, of course, have the Tomb Blade of ARKHAN, which is going to be summoning skeletons, and hopefully we can get those guys into the back line and do some work. So ARKHAN, of course, isn't the duelist that Settra is. Settra is going to be more independent against characters like KARL and Boris. He's going to be able to fight them off, right? But, ARKHAN's a little bit more of a caster. His combat stats aren't bad. 40... Did his melee defense get nerfed? I could have sworn it was a little bit higher, but 40 and 50, he doesn't have the best AP, so KARL will really whoop his ass. It'll be pretty bad for sure. So you need to have some protection. As such, we do have the Tomb Prince with Guardian, Anti-Large, all those good abilities. He does also have the Sword, which lowers armor and physical resist, which I believe is called the, it's one of the, I always forget, the Blade of Satep. That's pretty much my entire army. Pretty high in sight. We do have a couple Carrion and Skeleton Horsemen out on the flanks. It's always really important to try and harass the Empire back line. Oftentimes you'll have like some Skeleton Horsemen in the back there, and they'll have some Empire Knights or Knights of the Blazing Sun, and they'll actually chase your Skeleton Horsemen, which ends up being a pretty good trade for you. And for my opponent, the Mighty Pounder, very, very solid army up here. He does have KARL, and it looks like he does have both items, so he has Gal Maraz and the Reichel and Runefang. Going to be going pretty balls deep with KARL. And the front line is going to be Spearmen, Flagellants, Sigmar Sons. Yeah, relatively low tier state troop front line. There's not going to be any great swords, so I should be okay in the front line. Granted, Flagellants might be able to beat Nehekar warriors. It's something I haven't really seen too often, so we'll have to see in this game. He does have the silver bullets in the back, and the mortar's actually going to be a super good pick here. Now, had I gone with Ushabti Grapos, the mortars would be pretty much useless. I mean, they'd be okay against my infantry and things like that, but against skeleton archers and stuff like that, they're really, really good. So I love this pick here. We do also have the Spearman in the back. He does have a Jade Wizard, silver bullets, Demogryph Knights, yeah, Royal Turf Griffites down there, going to be the RORs. And up on the high ground, he does have the Knights of the Blazing Sun, who are incredible against Tomb King's infantry and just kind of, putting pressure on them. So on that note, guys, let's get this show on the road and see how this battle goes. So the mortar fire is going to be raining in, doing some decent damage against my skeleton archers. Over the course of a long battle, it really does grind them down because they're not super accurate, but when they do make that square contact, it can do some pretty good damage. And you can see the Blessed Legion here does take a couple casualties and also some pretty good HP damage. So things are getting a little bit messy. In the meantime, KARL was trying to chase down these Skeleton Horsemen, who did actually take some casualties, I think, from these silver bullets. And the Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to be chasing those guys, which is quite good. I'm happy with that. If they're wasting time chasing Skeleton Horsemen, they are not doing other important things. In the meantime, my other group of Skeleton Horsemen are going to be swooping up and around the back, going to be trying to get in here and just find an opening. He has pretty good defenses. He has spears everywhere. He has the Demogryph Knights. He has, Free Company Militia, who I thought they were handgunners for a second, so I was like, oh, let's jump on those guys. But when I saw they were Free Company, I was like, yeah, let's just jump on the silver bullets and try and muck those guys up. KARL in the front line is going to be jumping in with the Steel Gal Maraz, going to be clubbing some of these Tomb Guards. So, I mean, he's more meant versus large targets. But nonetheless, with Blood Roar, he can actually make them crumble quite a bit quicker, and should be able to get a couple casualties on these guys. So my Skeleton Archers, I'm going to be focusing most of my fire here on the Silver Bullets, realizing I really need to take those guys out. And look at the Mortars, actually doing huge damage. My Skeleton Archers down to half health. The Blessed Legion down here is at about 75%, give or take. So pretty solid little frontal engagements here. ARKHAN the Black and Company are going to be summoning some Skeletons here, so you can see the Skeletons are dropped in the back line. Going to be trying to jump onto the Silver Bullets. Anytime you can get into that juicy Empire back line, it's always going to be so good. So the Blessed Legion is still peppering some fire, but the Mortars are really just doing a number on my Skeleton Archers. And I'm trying to be very, very conservative here with the Eyes of the Desert. Just waiting for his cav, waiting to see where he commits before I send them forward, because the front line is an okay grind for me. The Nehekar Warriors do have the Liber Mortis. They're putting in a good trade against the Flagellants, and it looks like the Tomb Guard are just beating the brakes off the Sigmar Suns. And yeah, across the front line, most of these trades are going very, very well. So if we take a big look at the overhead battle here, you can see the Empire Cav has committed to Knights of the Blazing Sun, have charged into the Tomb Guard here. I do also have a Tomb Prince, which isn't going to be bad, and I do drop a Fated Buna on Knights of the Blazing Sun, which is, not the best because they do have magic resist, but nonetheless, I needed to work those guys down. And Fated Buna isn't super cost effective against Demogryph Knights because of their lower model count, so I figured, hey, let's pepper these guys down and see if we can get any damage. And the Eyes of the Desert also using the ranged attacks, which let's go and take a look at the kit here. So 149 missile damage with good AP as well as poison, so certainly not bad. Now, the bounce bar is pretty even, maybe a little bit in the favor of the Empire. I finally do get around the back line here with these Skeleton Horsemen, and I thought I was going to get into the cookie jar, but very, very well played here by my opponent. He saw them coming, he reacted very quickly, pulled his Knights of the Blazing Sun back from the front line, and was able to get back here and chase off the Skeleton Horsemen, therefore maintaining his back line. So far, I haven't been able to really disrupt his guns. Free Company Militia are healthy, Mortars are healthy. You could also see the Silver Bullets are shooting in quite happily against these Skeleton Horsemen. I was hoping, my attack in the back would pull him away, but no, he's doing such a good job defending his line here. The Royal Outdwarf Fights are going to be intercepting, and from here I will just be pulling back. So at this point, though, I finally saw a bit of an opening. So the Royal Outdwarf Fights were overextending a little bit. So I turn around the Skeleton Horsemen, I decide to fight, I get the Eyes of the Desert as well as some spears, and I pile in here. I'm like, okay, let's go for this fight, see if we can drag down this very expensive unit and finally get a bit of a grab in this game. Now, that's not to say things aren't going well in other areas. The front line is going well. Tomb Guard are beating Skeletons, the Spearmen, of course, and the Nehekar Warriors with a little bit of support beat the Flagellants. So the entire front line has pretty much been a victory for the Tomb Kings here. And ARKHAN the Black is going to be chasing down these guys, just trying to get some kills. They're at 19 models of their 24, so we've done some damage, and the Eyes of the Desert with their anti-large are starting to get a little bit of damage in here, especially with the saturation from the Skeleton Horsemen. So having these Skeleton Horsemen in here is super important because they're taking the beating and allowing the more expensive units to not take as much damage. We're also going to be dropping a Spirit Leech here, still at 19 models. We haven't been able to kill too many models despite the fact we've been in sustained combat for quite some time. We have the Tomb Prince, we have ARKHAN, and it looks like we're finally starting to get some damage down to 17 models here, which is quite good. And the bounce bar is still, pretty much even at this point. Skeleton Spearmen are going to be pushing in. I do use the Ushabti summon, and I normally like to save it for late game, but the Silver Bullets sitting here and just pounding my guys out was just too much to take. I couldn't have them, shooting into these guys unimpeded. So the Ushabti summon is going to be getting dropped here, and I'm going to be trying to force path on top of these guys. Now, the Demogryph Knights got broken off. They have 12 models left. They are broken, so that was a really good grab. Now, unfortunately, they probably will come back. I don't have the time to really chase them off. I need to get into the back line and pressure some of these other elements. So from here, I see a big opportunity. I'm like, oh, this Jade Wizard is alone, and it looks like there's not too much Empire support here. So we're going to be going after the Jade Wizard. The Tomb Prince is going to be going in. You can see ARKHAN the Black is going to be jumping in there, and we're going to be getting some huge damage. You can see the Jade Wizard is wavering. He's taking a bit of a beating from all these attacks. Look at that Tomb Prince just doing huge damage. And finally, the back line is a little bit open, so the Skeleton Horsemen are going to be jumping in there, getting on top of these mortars. A big mistake over here, though. My Tomb Guard, I forgot to pull them off the front line. I was just chasing these guys off the battlefield, so now I'm missing like a full health group of Tomb Guard. So it's going to be ways for them to get back, but the bounce bar actually does pull in my favor a little bit for the first time in the battle. You can see the Tomb Guard and the Nehekar Warriors here are going to be fighting the Spearmen, and a lot of the Empire Cav is pretty much offline. The Knights of the Blazing Sun just got dragged down by sheer numbers. Now in the back, the Royal Outdwarf Fights, the heroes of the Empire, are going to be charging back in, and they're just going to be shrekking these Skeleton Horsemen, which is probably going to free up the Mortars again, which is a little bit tough. These Mortars have been doing a ton of damage all game, and it looks like these Skeleton Horsemen are, they're going to be crumbling here in a moment. So as a last desperate move, I basically grab these guys, and I just push forward over here and try and shut down this Mortar. Quick sip of water here. And we're back, guys. We're back in action. So KARL Franz is going to be popping the Reikland Runefang to help out these frontline troops. And these Spearmen, with the melee attack, are actually going to be pretty formidable. It's a 46 melee attack, and the Nehekar Warriors and all these guys are going to be crumbling. KARL Franz, of course, has Blood Roar, so whenever nearby troops are, fighting him, they're basically just arguing by. They're going to be taking a leadership penalty, which is quite good. And you can see a lot of my undead troops are actually crumbling. So Nehekar Warriors and Tomb Guard here in a little bit of trouble, especially with the Royal Outdwarf Fights coming in. But the back line is going to be mine for the most part. These Eyes of the Desert are going to be going over here to chase off the Silver Bullets. I can't can't afford to sit on top of the mortar, but they're not super fast. They do have 50 speed, and the silver bullets, and I really just wish I could have chased those guys off. They're able to get some really good damage on the eyes, which didn't need to happen. In the meantime, though, a little bit scary. ARKHAN the Black is an open field, and the bounce bar is pulling back towards the middle. My opponent is making some really good plays. He's pulling his way back into this game here, and Karl's coming in with the erect Gall Mirage. He might have popped it a little bit early because I am able to kind of squeak away here, and I do also pop the ability that lowers my cooldowns, and I'm basically just going to be scurrying over here to the Eyes of the Desert. Now, here's a little bit of a predicament. I was chasing off his caster, and I was like, okay, hopefully he'll run off the battlefield from here, but, you know, I had a choice. I'm like, do I chase off the caster, guarantee the Jade Wizard isn't going to come back for heals, or do I come back and help, you know, my lord? Because right now, it's not looking too hot, right? He does have the Royal Altar for Griffites coming in. Eyes of the Desert are super beat up, and Karl Franz is just going to beat the brakes off ARKHAN the Black in a straight-up fight, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull back. Jade Wizard might come back in here, but I'm going to 100% lose the game if ARKHAN the Black dies. So Karl Franz jumps in there. ARKHAN the Black's going to be putting some jukes on. The Eyes of the Desert with the Leaper Mortis are going to be just standing and fighting, trying to hold the line. But they take a huge charge from 12 of the Royal Altar of Griffites. Brutal stuff right here. And they're at negative leadership, -2. They're crumbling. They're going down incredibly fast. So at this point, I'm just trying to get ARKHAN the Black away. We'll be dropping a Spirit Leech on the Royal Altar of Griffites, trying to get those guys down. And finally, the Tomb Prince is back. But so is the Jade Wizard. Jade Wizard's going to be coming back line, and it looks like he's going to be popping a heal on himself to get him back in the battle, which, you know, he might have wanted to save it. He maybe save it for Karl Franz, but even still, I mean, it does keep him here. He might have just wavered and broke otherwise. So down to the fight, you can see that the Royal Altar of Griffites are indeed shaken. They're pretty damn low. They might actually break here. The Tomb Prince is going to be fighting these guys. ARKHAN the Black is just going after, I mean, not ARKHAN, Karl Franz is going to be going after ARKHAN the Black here, which is not a good situation. But Karl turns around, goes after the Prince right here. I do also pop Tomb Strike to get the Terror and the melee attack. Terror isn't going to matter against these guys. But nonetheless, this is a huge moment right here. This is going to be really decisive. So Karl Franz does have the Blade of Setep on him, lowering his armor and physical resist, and we finally do break off the Royal Altar of Griffites, but the Tomb Prince is super low. ARKHAN the Black is also helping out, but man, just so damn close. The Tomb Prince gets a couple good blows in here against Karl Franz. Another Spirit Leech does go down because we did have the ability to lower our cooldowns with ARKHAN the Black up, so we're able to get that Spirit Leech up really, really quick, and Karl Franz looks like he's going to be breaking. He's shaken for leadership 777. My Tomb Prince has 512 HP. ARKHAN the Black is at about half health, give or take, but the Jade Wizard is back, and it looks like the Empire has basically secured this entire battlefield right here. Now, I do have Tomb Guard coming back, but due to my misplay, they're going to be taking a lot of unnecessary mortar fire, which is actually going to punish them very bad. They're super lightly armored. But what I do against Karl Franz is I use the curse. So I had the curse on the Tomb Prince. I'm able to curse him with the Joff, which makes him rampage, and that pulls him back into the fight, which means I'm going to be able to turn and fight him here. But it looks like Karl Franz is going to be able to kill my Tomb Prince. He's a little bit beat up here with 4 leadership, and down he goes, or 4 HP. So Karl Franz kills him. Pretty big play there. Karl Franz himself, 360, -17. The curse, of course, lowering his melee attack, which is quite useful. So at this point, I break him. So he does kill the Tomb Prince, and I'm just going to be chasing him off the battlefield. So even if you break a flying unit, now, of course, I can't attack him, but if you run under him with something or nearby, he's going to stay broken. Whereas if I just let him go, he's probably going to come back and potentially get some heals. So at this point, I have to chase him off. So you basically just run under him, right? Just chase him down and do what you can. So there goes ARKHAN the Black, going to be chasing that off. The Tomb Guard are coming across the battlefield, but the mortars are just doing so much damage. My opponent just being just so solid at securing. I mean, at this point in the game, if you're playing Empire and you have like some powder units and some artillery still online against Tomb Kings, I'd say that's quite the accomplishment. So right here, the mortars are going to be shooting downtown after the Tomb Guard. They're down to 79 models. Their leadership is certainly not happy. Half HP, so that is not good. But it looks like we are going to be getting Karl off the battlefield. So we'll just fast forward this little Benny Hill moment here. And it looks like the Jade Wizard was just kind of staying nearby in case Karl came back and he wanted to fight. Potentially, the Jade Wizard could jump in and really help out quite a bit. So the Tomb Kings are going to be moving up the hill here, the Tomb Guard. And I was going to go after the Free Company Militia, but they're pretty fast. So at this point, I'm like, I have to take whatever fight I can get. So the Tomb Guard are going to be jumping in against these Spearmen. And they have 36 models left, but the Tomb Guard are like designed to kill infantry like this. So they're going to be able to grind those guys out. So my floor's a little bit creaky there. But nonetheless, you can see these Spearmen are having some problems. They're wavering. The Tomb Guard in a very, very happy position here. The mortars just danger close, not caring about friendly casualties. Just going to be shooting in there and going after the Tomb Guard, which is probably a good idea. But the Free Company Militia is shooting them in the back, which means their shields aren't going to be helping them. And the mortars are almost out of ammo, though. He has 2 shots right here. He does have 1 more shot here with these mortars. And this is just such a tense game. So the Free Company Militia going to be running up the hill. ARKHAN the Black is coming back, trying to chase after the Jade Wizard, but it looks like the Jade Wizard might get back here first, and there are the Silver Bullets in the distance who have actually rallied, and they still have 16 models, which is decent firepower. It's certainly not bad. So those guys coming back is going to be pretty huge for the Empire here. But you can see the bounce bar is a little bit in my favor. So a little bit of Benny Hill. We'll fast forward as the troops get in position here. The Tomb Guard are going to be charging up the hill, trying to get on those guys. The Jade Wizard does come in here and picks off a couple of those guys. They're crumbling. Really not a good situation here. But Tomb Guard hold to the bitter end. These guys are just one of those troops that just have, you know, really good leadership for what they are. And yeah, they just last forever. So Ark in the Black is going to be charging in as well, and we're going to be dropping the Skeleton Summon, so I barely used these all game. I think I only used one at the very beginning, so I actually still had 3 charges at this point in the battle, so that was kind of my trump card in the back pocket, and the Jade Wizard is going to be charging in to go fight Ark in the Black, but ARKHAN is a far superior combatant. 25, 30, and 300 against ARKHAN's 40, 50, and 450, so going to be an okay situation for me. But the Free Company Militia do get dogpiled here by the Summoned Skeleton Warriors. But remember, guys, summons have been heavily nerfed. And this is actually a huge change here. Because you could see the Skeleton Warriors, it feels like I just summoned them like a second or two ago, right? But they're almost halfway done. You can see in the bottom left corner, if you look at the tooltip, they do have this unbinding. So after a certain amount of time, these guys are going to be gone. And it's going to be pretty good for the Empire again. So the Jade Wizard is going to be squeaking away, and the best thing he could probably do right now is just run away a little bit, wait for the summons, and get his silver bullets back online. And from there, I think he's going to be able to, have some pretty good plays, because the only troops I really have left aside from that are my Tomb Guard here, which are very beat up. They have 21 models. They've been crumbling, for the last part of this game here, so it's not going to be the best situation for those guys. So Ark in the Black is going to be trying to get on top of that Jade Wizard, but from here I'm going to be pulling back because I didn't want to get caught up with spears and infantry and get mucked down. So I'm just going to be fighting with my troops, shattering these Free Company Militia as well as these spearmen. And now we're going to be moving on. But guys, the unbinding the nerf summons, which I think is very warranted. I think it makes the game much, much better here. You can see these Skeleton Warriors. Normally they would be super oppressive, right? They would just push through, kill everything. But at this point they completely die just instantly. So solid stuff there. Good stuff from the CA balancing team in my opinion. And Ark in the Black is going to be jumping back in here to fight. But he doesn't have too much support. Granted, I don't have too much time until my next skeleton summon because it does recharge when you're in combat. So I probably have another one coming up in about 10 or 15 seconds. I just need to stay in combat here against some of these troops. But, silver bullets are coming back in here, which is going to be tricky. I can't see them coming either, so I don't know until just now. So I pull out of combat. I try and snipe the Jade Wizard a little bit, but at this point I do see the silver bullets, but there's going to be some Last Samurai action. Ark in the Black is going to get popped in the face by these guys. Not going to be the best situation for this evil cackling necromancer, but alas, he's going to be getting in there, and they draw their swords, but he decapitates a couple of those guys on the charge, so that's going to be quite good. And it looks like the curse did go down as well from Ark in the Black because he did get pretty low, but it basically just hit the mortar team, which isn't super solid. So we are able to shatter the silver bullets here. So right now the Empire is going to be making its last stand, just getting ready. The Bounce Power is pretty much dead even at this point. I mean, the Spearman, the Jade Wizard, if the Jade Wizard is able to fight with the Spearman, they could probably beat Ark in the Black at this point. So I'm just trying to find my target. I get in there, I'm looking around, I'm trying to get around the Jade Wizard, and I do get in there, and now I have my final cast. So there's going to be the Skeleton Summon. The Bounce Power does go a little bit in my favor, but the Empire certainly can potentially hold if the Jade Wizard doesn't get too beat up here. So Ark in the Black with the Staff of Nagash, I do pop that to add to the cooldown. I still have one more Skeleton Summon. Like I said, I barely use it the entire game, so it's coming into pretty substantial help here in the fourth quarter. But Ark in the Black fighting there with the Staff of Nagash, just going to town on the Jade Wizard, and it is just such a close battle. Now let's go and look around and see if anything is going to be coming back. It does not look like it. So Skeleton Warriors here doing pretty good in terms of kills. They do have 10 kills. They're really cutting up this mortar team. And if we are able to break a couple of these guys in the back, there is, of course, a penalty for your friends fleeing. So the Spearmen could break. I mean, they've been fighting all game. They're exhausted. They're beat up. The Jade Wizard is very tattered as well. And these Skeleton Warriors, I think, are going to be able to pull this one out. Such an incredibly close game. So well played to my opponent. This is just so back and forth. And you can see here that the Skeleton Warriors look to be kind of surging forward. And the brave Sons of Sigmar, they should probably retreat to fight another day. But they're holding firm here. And the Skeleton Warriors are just, doing their thing. So Ark in the Black against the Jade Wizard, the duel of duels. And it looks like Ark in the Black is going to be winning that duel. And there's probably going to be some army losses here in just a second. So very well played to my opponent. That was such a damn close game. There was like a couple minor things that the game could have gone either way. Getting that curse on KARL Franz when he was fleeing was huge. We were able to pull him back down to the ground, get him away from his heels, break him, and chase him off the battlefield. If we hadn't gotten that curse, that would have just been a disaster. I think he would have won the game 100%. A couple other things. Pounder said after the game that perhaps had he not used the regrowth on top of the Jade Wizard as it was coming back and had gotten it off from KARL, that would have been much better. And I think honestly, had that happened, maybe he would have won the game as well, because KARL Franz was just such a beast, and I really didn't have much left to deal with him after he killed my Tomb Prince. But as far as the build goes, I did like it. The one thing I was a little bit on the fence about were the Eyes of the Desert. I felt like just some regular, what are those knights called? Necropolis knights would have been a little bit better with halberds and poison and stuff, but it's hard to say. They're not bad. I mean, but the Necropolis knights can be focused down by cannons and things like that. These guys can't. Granted, this map wasn't very good for cannon, so I probably should have known that, there wasn't going to be cannon pressure from the Empire, but I don't know. I feel like the build was okay. I had some pretty decent tools, but against like multiple cav units, so let's say you had like 3 or 4 Knights of the Blazing Sun, or 2 of them and 2 Demogryph Knights, I don't know if I would have been able to protect my back line with just those guys and the Tomb Prince and some spears. I feel like it would have been a little bit tricky, so maybe some adjustment to this build might be needed. So let's see, what would we change? Maybe cut 1 Skeleton Archer and 1 Carrion, and maybe just get like some more defensive units like Tomb Guard with Halberd for the back line. Something like that could work. So again, very well played to my opponent, Pounder. It was a super close game, could have gone either way, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this Tomb King vs Empire Showdown. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.